terrible for me, right? I am the kind of person that is interested in way too many things. I am the definition, the personification of shiny object syndrome. And with AI, you're able to just do a lot more easily, a lot more than you possibly thought you could, right? Not necessarily saying that you should be doing a lot more, but it just gives you the option to do so. I've gone ahead, for example, and started my Turo fleet. I have a Turo fleet now. What the heck, right? And the reason I have a Turo fleet is because it's super easy to just do valuations on cars and to project ROIs on car purchases and to see if a Turo fleet makes sense. And it financially did make sense. And now I have yet another thing that I have on my plate. And I'm into cars. Anyway, that is not what we're going to talk about. We're talking about Apple and why Apple may have lost the AI race. And we are maybe witnessing the final flops of Apple just wheezing out its final breaths, at least in the AI race. I think it's lost its lead. It's been beaten to the punch by all these other big tech companies, right? The reason I say this and the reason we're talking about this today is because very recently Tim Apple, did his version of a pep talk that was supposed to be outward facing, that wasn't just supposed to rally up the troops within the company walls, but it was also supposed to signal that Apple is finally pulling itself up by the bootstraps and showing up at this AI race, right? It claims, I think one of the highlights, the argument that Tim Cook made is that, hey, look, Apple's never been the first at any of the technologies that it's revolutionized. There were smartphones before Apple. There were, whatever. There was the whatever else Apple's make. I'm just gonna go with smartphones because Apple's dominating the smartphone game, right? There were personal computers before Apple, but then Apple showed up and they absolutely dominated the game. Apple sells more phones than any other company right now, and it has more. It sells them for the highest markup than any other company does. It is absolutely dominating the game, despite not being the first mover. And Apple claims that this strategy is simply going to translate over to how AI adoption is working, right? Look, if you're an Apple fanboy, you're going to get riled up by this, right? And don't get me wrong, I think Apple products are great. I am recording this on a MacBook because I think they're incredibly easy to use. I use an iPhone, right? But Apple has had pretty tremendous flops. And Apple recently, I think, has sort of been a trend follower. Like if you sort of look back to the brief hoopla we had about everybody talking about the metaverse and about how everybody thought that metaverse was going to be the next big thing, Apple showed up with a $3,500 piece of gadget that didn't even, I don't even know if it shipped worldwide, if it was like, forget flying off the shelves. I don't even know if it made it to most retail shelves. That project was dead on arrival. The Apple virtual reality headsets, right? At least Meta, with its crazy bet on the metaverse, sold a lot of Oculus headsets. Apple also scrapped Project Titan when it thought that, hey, self-driving cars are a great thing. Maybe we should get into this space. So, contrary to what people think that Apple is this behemoth that does incredibly deep research and only makes marketing decisions and decides to go into a market when it is fully confident that it is going to dominate, is a false conclusion. It's simply not true. And I think Apple's wrong about AI, and here is why, right? The reason Apple absolutely dominated the smartphone space is because they presented the best possible, easiest to use UI ever. I don't think that's what AI is lacking at this point. Apple has had plenty of opportunities to make AI packaged and more convenient to use. Case in point, its AI assistant that consistently falls behind all of the AI assistants of its competitors. Siri. Siri has been gasping for air, begging for a rehaul using an AI injection, and it still hasn't delivered, right? Apple has the device advantage, right? Unless Apple moves to shipping on-device, very privacy-first AI models, it is not going to have any advantage. right? I don't think UIs are going to get more convenient than what Claude is offering or OpenAI is offering or what Gemini is offering, right? Because at the end of the day, AI is a place that AI is meeting people where they're seeking answers. And that's usually when you're trying to search for something on Google, the Gemini integration, super convenient, super sleek, super right there, right? You don't have to go out of your way, make some extra clicks to get your answers. It's right there. ChatGPT is on every phone. It's got a voice only mode that lets you just talk to the app. It does not get easier than that, right? The only advantage that I can think of when it comes to Apple's maybe um, this differentiator is that it has the monopoly on smartphones. So if it is able to ship if it is able to ship an on-device um, model that is fast, that doesn't send data or your prompts to a remote server, and it's able to do the inference on device, then yeah, maybe it has something, maybe it has a limb to go on. But I simply think that people are going to choose more competent and capable models instead of a model that gives them more privacy. People want quicker answers, people want more accurate answers, and people want answers that rely on relevant information using retrieval augmented generation. And all of that is not going to be possible if your AI model is going to be offline and on device only. The most capable models are trillions of parameters large, and they cannot be hosted on any device, right? And I also think these other companies have better strategies in getting ahead in the game compared to Apple, right? For example, Meta's strategy. Meta, by the way, has not been playing a game that's any different from the game it's been playing for decades now, right? Meta's strategy has always been, we're going to try to build this. If it's hard to build, no, actually forget it. Meta's strategy is, we're going to buy somebody that's already doing it amazing. If they refuse to be bought out, we are going to copy their technology. If we can't copy their technology, and this is like a maybe new chapter in their acquisition playbook, they are going to acquire the heck out of everybody at the company they're trying to acquire or own, right? I mean, we saw this with Snapchat. Meta tried to buy out Snapchat. Snapchat said no, and then Meta basically created a version of Snapchat with their Instagram stories and Messenger stories and whatnot. Right? They basically copied that feature off of Snapchat. And Meta is dropping these multi-million dollar, multi-hundred-million-dollar compensation packages to poach these AI researchers from the likes of OpenAI and uh, Google also bought I think Google also bought out the Windsurf team when that acquisition deal fell through. So the acquihire strategy is working really well in people trying to get ahead in the AI game right now. I simply just don't see Apple doing it. I mean, what was Apple's response to Meta basically just poaching the head of AI from Apple, right? Because I think Meta also realizes that they can take on. This is all right. So let's back up a bit here. Meta for the longest time has been a little salty, I think, because Apple has this dominance over the device layer, and rightfully so, right? Apple will charge a 30% fee for any app that's downloaded off the App Store if there is a subscription on the app that you're using, if you've downloaded it off the App Store. And Apple has monopoly over this because everyone's using iPhones. If Meta, and Meta does see this, Meta sees an opportunity right now to sort of introduce AI first hardware that people will adopt, a new form factor of hardware, if you will, Meta Ray-Ban glasses, maybe even some more something even more novel. I know. Okay, so speaking about the hardware play and new form factors for hardware that are AI first, um, OpenAI also kind of poached the chief, not poached. They hired the chief designer, product designer at Apple, in order to build a AI first hardware that was going to be OpenAI specific. So I think the grounds are shifting right now in terms of who controls the railroads. For the longest time, the railroads were controlled by Apple and Apple devices, but I think right now there is a crack in the fortitude in the fortress, and there's an opportunity for other players like Meta and OpenAI to come in and get a piece of this hardware infrastructure by. What's going to happen with Apple? I don't know. I mean, I think Apple might be the only incumbent here that is too big to move fast. Google's moving pretty fast. Google has shipped the best video generation model to date. It's beat Runway ML in terms of its video generation capabilities, right? So Google is doing just fine. The Gemini Pro models are on par, if not better at certain things than OpenAI, the startup, or Anthropic, the startup's models, right? So Google, as an incumbent, is able to move pretty fast and nimble. Meta, gotta say what you will about Zuckerberg, but Meta absolutely knows how to still operate and pivot and be light on its feet like a startup. Microsoft made the deal of its lifetime by signing that contract with OpenAI that gives them that ownership structure that they share with OpenAI, and how they own a lot of OpenAI, right? So they have hitched their bandwagon to the exact right company to be relevant in the AI first world right now. Apple, Apple's really dropping the ball, and I honestly don't see them coming back. Apple might just be relegated to the Hall of Lamers the way Nokia did. And I'm really sorry to say this, but unless Apple finds a way to use the colossal $130 billion of cash that it just has on its balance sheet to acqui-hire a bunch of AI experts, or to bring something super novel and innovative, it's just simply going to be left behind, right? Anyway, that's my take. That's my rant. If you're an Apple fanboy, I'm sorry. Let's have this conversation. Apple really is just flopping around on its belly right now. Anyway, thanks for tuning in.